What's up everyone, Steven here from TechMaker Studio. In this episode, we're kicking off a brand new series. We're going to build out a Twitter clone that is fully decentralized, and we're going to do it in React.js on top of the Aleph.im network. In this episode, we're really just kind of getting things set up. As you can see, essentially what we managed to get done is we're starting to kind of rough in the layout. Obviously, it doesn't look good at all right now, so this is not at all the finished product. But we kind of start setting up the layout. I show you how to use our new Web3 starter kit that we're developing. And you'll see here if I go ahead and disconnect my MetaMask and refresh here. You can see now we have a Connect wallet down here. So there's a sign in with MetaMask that's happening here. So we're going to show you how to set that up. That's really basic. It's already built out for you. So you'll pretty much just clone the code. So what the plan is for this, in this episode, we set things up. We kind of just pull in, some data from Aleph and kind of start laying things out. It may be a little bit confusing if you're not familiar at all with Web3 or Aleph or any of those technologies. I do have other videos, which I'll link to down in the description if you want to check that out. But the main moral of the story is don't worry about it. This one is really just kind of getting set up. So just follow along, do whatever I'm doing. I'm going to push this out on GitHub, which I'll also link to, so you can just clone and go from there if you want at the end of the episode. And in the next episodes, what we're really going to do is start digging more into React and how we can make this look really cool, and then also into the Aleph stuff so you can see how to use this new really cool decentralized database and other features and so on and so forth. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to the actual episode. If you like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel, share it on social media. Anything that's helpful to the channel is much appreciated. And but let's get going. Last quick thing before we jump in is just that this is our workshop series. It is not a tutorial. So if you're used to tutorials that are perfectly well lined out, this is not that. This is more of we're building a real project and we're going to go through the weeds, and we will cut some things if it gets way off into left field out of the videos, but for the most part, I'm trying to just give you my raw thought process as somebody who's been building software for a very long time at this point. And it's not perfect, but hopefully it's helpful and a little bit different than everything else that's out there. So with that said, now let's actually jump into the content. To get started, we're going to use a new library that I just kind of started working on. It's really actually just a basic React app with some pre-built components or pre-built functions, basically. And some dependencies already set up to make our life a little bit easier when we do some of these Web3 projects. It's really just some simple boilerplate code. This is the very, very, very first version. There will definitely be upgrades. So if you're watching this in the future, we'll do a quick test drive of it here in a little bit. And things should look similar, but it may look a little different. But in any case, the only thing I want you to that you're going to need to install if you're not familiar with Web3 is MetaMask. So if you go to metamask.io, if you're a web developer, you should normally have Chrome installed most likely. I would just install the Chrome extension of MetaMask and set it up. It's super, super easy. They have some other options if you want to do that instead, but that's kind of the most straightforward thing. That shouldn't take you very long. I have MetaMask set up over here. This is on my development computer, so I don't keep any real money or crypto on here, other than just little tiny amounts on Polygon normally for doing things on some test apps we've deployed or games or whatever, but nothing serious, just in case I ever accidentally show something that I shouldn't. But in any case, so what we need to do is go ahead and clone or fork or whatever you want to do this library into a new project. I'm going to clone it and change the name on my computer here. So what I want to do is let's CD down into projects on my thing here. And then we'll change down into TechMaker and then workshops. Do I not have a workshops in here? Let's make one. Okay, so we'll change down into workshops. And I'm just going to call this Twitter clone, I think. I don't think I'll name it that, like if we put out like a name or like a domain or something, but just for the sake of like easy to remember stuff that we're doing, we'll just call this Twitter clone. So I'm going to do git clone, paste that URL, and then I'm just going to call it Twitter clone. And then we'll change down into Twitter clone. And if we do npm start, let's do npm install. And excuse me, this should just take a second, and then we should be able to do npm start and get this up and running. Now you'll want to, and I will actually remove the git here. So what we'll do is well, as soon as this finishes, which may take a sec, it's installing a bunch of stuff related to Web3, which if you're unfamiliar, you won't need to worry about, but it might take a little bit longer than your typical install. Looks like we're just about done, hopefully. Okay, cool. So I'm going to do rm-rf.git. Which is gonna, you can see here now I don't have a git library, or I don't have a git repo set up. So now I'll just do git init. And now I'm basically, now I'm a new repo, but it's copied the previous. So, and I want to do that so I don't accidentally push anything from this to the actual Web3 starter kit, because that's going to be its own deal. Okay, so now with all of that installed, let's run npm start, and let's have a look at what this gives us. And I may already be pre-connected once this finally loads up, because I've been doing a lot of stuff on localhost 3000, but in any case, we will take a look at it as soon as it loads. Let's see. There we go. So yeah, I'm already connected. Let me come in here and disconnect my address and refresh. And basically now you should essentially have this Web3 starter kit on the left and then a connect wallet on the right. And if you connect your wallet after you've installed MetaMask, you should see your address appear here. This is really, really basic. There's not much going on, but we'll look at the code for just a second, and then we're going to start building some stuff. Also, one other thing, I am recording now on my new iMac that I just got not too long ago, as opposed to my previous computer. So if the sizing is all whack, let me know. I'm trying to zoom in on stuff, but I think it's possible some of this stuff could be kind of small. So let's try to zoom in just to make it a little bit better, but we'll see. I get some complaints occasionally about that. Okay, so we just opened up in VS Code our project. Essentially, this is a standard kind of React app. If you've looked at a React app before, this should look kind of familiar. Essentially, right now we have one component. Well, we have two components. We have the app.js, which has some sort of, it's only 30 lines of code, so it's not a lot. And then we have this navbar component. So we're pulling in three things right now. We have this Web3, we have Aleph account, and then we have account. And I actually think I had started renaming this stuff, and maybe I just didn't push it to the main library yet. But we're gonna stick with this for now. Essentially, Aleph is a decentralized network for things like data and file storage and this sort of stuff. That's sort of underselling it. They do a lot of things, but that's what we're going to use it for. And then the account is the actual address. And this is actually, I know what I did. So I'm going to go ahead and make a quick change here. We're going to say wallet address and then set wallet address here. And then what we're going to do is say set wallet address. This just kind of adds a little bit of clarity here, and we'll have to change this in the navbar as well. But basically, so you have this Aleph account, which is an actual JavaScript object with a bunch of stuff in it. This address is really just this string, which is like an Ethereum address. And again, if you're new to Web3, don't let this intimidate you. You will get the hang of this very quickly. And then here, we're going to say wallet address instead of that, and then swap this to be wallet address. Okay, so let's go back and look at that and make sure that still shows up correctly. My server is off. So we'll start that back up, and hopefully it doesn't take that long this time. But if everything still works, we didn't break anything, just made a very simple change there. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this code again. Sorry, wrong thing. Still kind of getting used to this computer versus my laptop. I have a mouse now, which is sort of odd. Okay, so this, let me zoom out. This is like too big for me to read it. Okay. So this is the index.js. This is your top level thing. And so what we did in here is we defined this connect web3, which essentially tries to connect MetaMask, and then once MetaMask is connected, it goes ahead and sets up an Aleph account as well, and then it returns the Aleph account and web3, and then we're passing in connect web3 here into the app. Again, this isn't like a pure beginner React.js video. I think that the series should be fairly beginner friendly, but you probably need to have at least a pretty decent idea of like how components work and how like function components work. I think that that's probably not a huge time investment before you get into this, but I'm assuming you've at least seen some of this stuff before. So then we've updated the app function to take props, and then right here you see on connect wallet, we're getting Aleph account and web3 out of this connect web3 from the props. Okay. One other interesting thing is whenever we refresh, we don't want to constantly tell people to connect their wallet again. So I'm running this, and this, I actually haven't figured this out perfectly yet, to be honest. Like this returns true sometimes where I feel like it shouldn't. I think there's something going on with local storage or a cookie that I'm unaware of. But it works okay. So I'm kind of putting that up front. This is the very first version of this Web3 starter kit. But we're checking if Ethereum is connected, and then we're calling connect wallet with no event. And so if you look back at index.js, we have this if event we call e.prevent default because that's the button click. Pretty straightforward stuff. I mean, it's a little bit to take in if you never looked at it before, but essentially it does what you saw. Really simple stuff. You'll see the bug I'm talking about here. If I disconnect, what I would like to happen is if I refresh now, because my wallet is disconnected, what I would like is to have the button, and I do. Now it's working. Okay, maybe it does work. I don't know. Anyway, so you click connect wallet. Once it's connected, now you have the address. So maybe I inadvertently fixed something at some point. I don't know. In any case, that's essentially our login function. So the reason we have all of that is MetaMask and these wallets from Ethereum and so on work very well as like a global single sign-on. So we don't have to collect information. We don't have to ask for emails, anything like that. You can just connect your wallet and boom, you're in. And we're going to look later on at how to like store information in like a profile and pull back profile pictures and usernames and this sort of stuff. But for right now, we are logged in with this wallet address. Okay, so if we look over at Twitter, I just want to quickly talk about the UX, because what we're going to do is really kind of take their user experience design as a lead here, and we're going to do basically what they've done, at least for the first version. We're not going to have all of these functions just yet. So basically what I'm going to do is have, you can see here, all right, slight divergence into UX discussion. And I had somebody comment and tell me they think I have ADHD or something like that, which is kind of funny. But I specifically am working through these like workshops because this is like real work, and I want to try to explain what I'm thinking about when I'm doing real work. This isn't a tutorial per se. So I kind of wanted to set this up like this so I could talk as long as I want, veer off into interesting territory to me. If you're not interested, feel free to fast forward, but when you view a site like this Twitter site is in obviously like a container. So like there's all this blank space on the sides. And I don't think Twitter uses the Bootstrap framework anymore, but the Bootstrap framework was either originally based on Twitter or extracted from Twitter. I'm not 100% sure. You can see how this kind of collapses as we go down, so you end up with just the icons. And you can go all the way down to like the mobile size, and you still get the icons on the left. I think that's pretty much what we're going to do if we even have different sections. I'm not sure yet. We might. I don't know how far this is going to go. What I don't want is I don't think I'm going to have this post thing at the top. I think I'm just going to make this straight up like the feed. And then when you click the post button, which ours to start is just going to say post, I think we're going to pull this modal up like this. But the first thing I want to do is just start pulling in some stuff into the feed and get the layout kind of set up like this. Also, if anybody does want to follow me, I am just 0x TechMaker on Twitter. But anyway, so what I want to do, we don't want this nav bar. It's just kind of a default thing. We're going to start with a container. We're going to put, Twitter clone or whatever here. We're going to, I don't know, we may try to put the account down at the bottom. I don't really want to try to build all of that out right now. Well, actually, Twitter makes, or the Bootstrap system makes this pretty straightforward. So let's see if we can do this. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's say div class name equals container. That was the wrong button. And then let's kick the nav bar down inside there, and you'll see what it does. So you can see now we're actually sort of cutting off here and here, which is pretty much where Twitter was. Okay, if we take the nav bar, let's look at the nav bar. Nav bar light, BG light. Let's cut this out and make it just white. I don't know if I'm going to go with dark or light mode. I'm definitely not going to build both dark and light modes for this. I may do dark mode. I'm not sure yet. But anyway, so now we've basically got kind of this integrated look. Now what I want to do is put this down here in the bottom left. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let's see, I don't need index open anymore. So we're in the container. What I want to do is basically something like div class name equals row, and then we'll do div class name equals col. Let's just do 3 and 9 for now. This won't be exactly like Twitter for the moment, but we'll just have this separation. So if you're not familiar with Bootstrap, you basically have this 12-column grid structure. And so if you basically declare there's a row, and then you can say, okay, now we have a column, and then we have a column. So let's bump, wrong direction, hitting the wrong button. It's not used to this keyboard yet. All right, let's bump this. What the heck? There we go. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so now we got our nav bar instead of this column 3. And let's go have a look. And now you can see everything's kind of getting shoved in here. I bet this is actually just this text doesn't have a break, and so it's extending past the column. But what we can do is, first of all, let's create a new thing here, and we'll say footer, like that. The one thing I'm not going to like about this is the connect wallet is going to be in a weird spot, but that'll be okay for now. So we're going to say footer.js. Actually, let's call this account. Account button. Maybe. Let's go with that for now. Doesn't matter too much. Copy all of the nav bar. That's also not a nav bar anymore, so I'm not sure what to do about that yet. So we'll say account button, and then down here we'll return account button. And we have this container fluid. We don't need that at all. Where do I want to cut this? So basically, I think all I want really is the nav, and then this, and I don't think I need this expand. I don't know what to make of all of this yet. I'm just kind of like hacking together some stuff based on what I know. Okay, so we have account button over here. We don't want footer. We want this to be account button. We're gonna import account button. So if we save that, let's have a look at what we got. So now we have Web3 starter kit, the address, and the address. Let's come back over to our nav bar, and let's just hack all of this out of it. Okay. And I don't think we're gonna need this. Just kind of tearing everything up here. And then let's change this to be like Twitter clone for now. We'll change this later. And then let's see. So now we don't need any of this nav bar thing. Can basically just be like an empty component there. Okay, so now we have Twitter clone and we have our address. Okay, so now the only thing we want to do is push that to the bottom. And I think the way that I'm gonna do that, if we go to Bootstrap, look at the docs, we will look at the components. Navbar, that's not navbar, that's navbar. Let's search for fixed. Okay, so here you've got that's what I want, fixed top, and then you have fixed bottom. So let's make one fixed top and one fixed bottom. So we'll say fixed top. I don't think I'm trying to cut things out that I don't actually need, right? So I don't need the container there. And then here we'll say fixed bottom. And let's have a look. Okay, so I lost my container, which is interesting. I think I should be inside of, I'm wondering if like somehow the navbar breaks out of the container. This is bizarre to me right here. I wonder if fixed top has to be paired with the navbar. Let's just try something really quick here. Or fixed bottom rather. Huh. Okay, so I am sort of surprised by what's happening right now, to be honest. So the navbar, I'm guessing, actually, you know what I bet it is? I bet it's because it's fixed. I think because of that fact, it breaks out of the grid structure. So I think and I bet if I read those docs, that's what it's going to tell me, is that having this be fixed breaks it out of the grid structure. So what we're going to want to do, and I apologize for confusing everybody, what we're going to want to do is just cut these, put them inside of here. Because when you fix these things, they are no longer in the flow of content according to CSS. So what we need to do is, so you're fixing the whole deal, and then you have to rebuild the grid structure inside it, most likely. So what we can do inside of here is say like div class name equals container, and then we'll do div class name equals col3, and I'm gonna go ahead and copy this before I do anything, just for using it in a second. So let's save that and go see what that looks like. Okay, cool, so now that's there. And then in my account button, I'm going to go ahead and paste in the thing I copied. I'm going to tab this in a couple times and slide it up. And now we've basically got this laid out kind of correctly, I think. Okay, so what we want to do now is add some posts over here in this section. And again, I'm kind of just roughing all of this in. But what we're going to do now is say div class name equals container. And then we're going to kind of, again, I apologize for the little bit of complexity here right at the beginning if you've never done this before. And this may not even be the best way to do it. I'm just kind of making this up on the fly. What we want to do is probably do something like div class name equals row. And then we'll do div class name equals col9 offset 3. And again, this is all just desktop right now. I've kind of worked this out in my head a little bit so that normally you would want to do things like mobile first, and I'm a believer in that for sure. But in this case, I'm just kind of getting us started here. So let's go ahead and just put in some text and make sure this lines up correctly. So if we look back at Twitter, so you have our stuff on the left here. So we've got Twitter clone and our address, which is not truncating at all, so it's overflowing into this other container probably. And then we have our little bit of text there, right? So what I want to do is just start kind of adding like a lightweight feed design, and we will definitely change this later. So I'm just kind of getting something in place that kind of works. That's kind of the initial point here. Okay, cool. So what do we want to do? Well, I think it probably makes sense to render a post element or a component. So we could have like posts like this, and we would need to we'll pass in stuff later when we need to. But let's do this. Let's create a new folder inside of components, and we'll call it posts. And then inside of here, I'm going to create a new file called posts.js. I'm going to do the same thing and copy I think there's a plugin that I haven't installed yet that makes it really easy to just initialize a new React component. Okay, so when we've got posts, we're not returning anything, so I need to return at least like a div. Okay, and then in app, let's import posts from components post. Okay, and now let's go back over to posts, and let's go ahead and put some text in there just to make sure it's showing up. Okay, cool. So before I go ahead and build out like a post component, what I actually want to do is just kind of hard code something in here. So we have a div. Maybe this has a class name of posts, so we can style it later. And then right in here, let's have a div class name equals post, like a single post. And I think I'm going to go ahead and give this a class of card. And we'll do class name equals card body. And then in here, let's go ahead and drop our ASDF. And now you can see we have like a little card thing showing up with some text here. You can also see the edges of our container now. You can see this goes all the way to the right side over here, and this goes all the way to the left. So this is the shape of our entire container. So that's pretty cool. It doesn't look like we've done much yet, but we are making some progress. So I think the last thing I want to do is try to just pull in some data and just dump it into a bunch of these boxes, and kind of just end with having some stuff showing up. Then it's obviously not going to look great or be functional in this video. I'm not trying to do like a build Twitter in 10 minutes thing, obviously, since it's been almost half an hour. We want to build something actually really cool here and interesting, so it's going to take us a little bit. But let's go over to Aleph.im. We're going to look a little bit at how we can pull back some data, and I'm going to talk a little bit about we're going to go to developers here and we'll go to the JavaScript SDK. So there's pretty good documentation over here for the JavaScript library, and what we want to do is just pull back some posts. So we're going to list all, and we're going to come down here and we're going to basically query get posts, and we're going to get some of the type post. I think it's the type post. Let's look at one other thing really fast. I can't remember exactly. We're not going to use this for our actual app, but I want to have some filler content to start. So one of the cool things is, and this is sort of hard to explain, but it's like once we start kind of going down this road and there's data accumulating on the network, you can build your own user interface, and the data that other people are generating will show up if they're using the same data protocol, basically. So let's go to the simplest possible dApp on GitHub. Let's look at the source, Vue.js here. I've looked at this many times. Okay, so we have chat. So we're going to pull back this. And then the room, I think we'll just use hull, right? Okay, so if this is totally confusing, I have some other videos that I'll link to in the description that explain the Aleph chat system a little bit. It doesn't really matter. We're just pulling back filler data, so don't worry about it. This will all make way more sense soon. But this is going to let us pre-populate with a little bit of stuff. So let's go back to our app over here. If we look at index.js, we have this import Ethereum from aleph.js. So what we're going to do in our posts is we're going to import posts from aleph.js, which is just a different library in that, or a different set of functions basically inside of that library. We're going to import use state and use effect from React, because we're going to need to essentially load some stuff up once this component has finished loading. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, let's do this. Let's say const post set posts equals use state, and I'm going to start with an empty array, and then underneath here I'm going to say use effect. And what we're going to do is, so if you want to do something just when the component loads the first time, what you want to do now, instead of all this sort of like component did mount stuff or whatever, is you're going to say use effect. You're going to give it this anonymous function, and then at the end you're going to say this is an empty array, so it only fires once. What you can actually do here is, like, if we wanted this use effect to trigger every time that the post variable changed for some reason, we could listen to the post like this, or anything else, whatever it is in here, you can. But if you just want it to fire once, you do it with an empty array. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to say use effect, and then we're going to call a function called load posts, which we need to write. The reason we're going to do that is because load posts is going to be asynchronous, and you cannot call like await inside of use effect. So what we're going to do is define const load posts equals async, and then give it that function declaration, and now we can call like await stuff. So we'll be like, what's the documentation again? We had that pulled up. So we have await post get posts, and I want to do, let's just do this. Let's copy this. We don't need to specify an API server for now because there's a default. The room, I mis-edited that. The room is going to be, we're just going to take, it doesn't matter which room we use because we don't care. So, because we're not really going to use this, we're just going to get hull. And let's do this. Let's say const posts equals, and then let's just console.log post and see what's in there, just to make sure, because we kind of added a bunch of stuff here all of a sudden. And cannot access post before initialization. So I'm overloading stuff here somehow. Okay, let's change this to be, because we're importing posts up here, and then we're trying to call a variable post, which that doesn't make any sense. So we'll say let's just say loaded posts, and then set loaded posts. Really, we need a better message. We need a better name than post. That's the moral of this story, I think. So we'll say const loaded posts equals that, and then we'll console.log loaded posts. Did I miss anything? Let's go check. Okay, let's check over here. All right, so you see we get this array of 200 items down here. That's the default max. But if you open these up, essentially we've got all these objects in here. So you have this chat in the ref hall. There's a content of hey question mark. It's really lucky that we got hey question mark instead of something bizarre or offensive. So that's kind of funny. It's a whole different point about having a decentralized chat. But in any case, what we want to do basically is we want to loop through those things and just display the raw content for now. So if we look at this, we have posts. Let's look at what we have. So what we're going to have is loaded post.posts. There's a lot of .posts in here, which can be kind of confusing. But if we look at this, now we have 200 objects. Okay. So if we loop through them all, what we can do is just print out the content.body. So we'll have post.content.body. So let's try that. So what we're going to do is inside of here, we're going to say, let's do loaded posts dot map post and then index, and then what we're going to do is just print out the post, and then we're going to pass in the post equals post, and we need to give it a unique ID for the key. And actually, I don't really want to worry about this index. That's not really a great way to do that. So what we can do is say key equals, what's the unique thing? There's like an ID in here, right? What we can do is just the post item hash. That should be unique, I believe. Post.item hash. And let's come over here. Let's cut this. Let's create a new file. Post.js. Let's paste that stuff in there. We're going to fix it in just a second. My navbar is way simpler, so let me copy that. Post there. We're going to say post. I'm going to have to rethink this naming a little bit though. We're going to axe all of that. We're going to copy, cut that, and realign it. Let's see. Okay, so we got our post coming in with the props. We need to import post from post. What's the error here? Map post. I think I need I believe that looks correct now. Let's go look at this. So I'm not doing anything in here. So what I want to, well, I'm actually not printing anything out, which is sort of alarming. I must have done something wrong in here. If we look at the body, div ID root, app, container, row, post, nothing in it. Alright, maybe I didn't save everything. Let's just be sure we did everything like we wanted here. I should have a bunch of ASDF cards, so that's what I'm a little confused about right now. Okay, so I just looked at the code, and there's an obvious thing I did not do, which I never actually set the loaded posts. So if we say set loaded posts, instead of console logging, loaded post.map is not a function. So what I want to do is actually say set, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say response, and then here I'm going to say response.posts. And the reason I'm doing that is because that object that comes back is not an array. It's a JavaScript object that has an array of posts in it, if you will remember, and some other data. So what we want to do, so we're passing we have the key or the post.item hash here, and let's actually look at that really quick. Let's see if we can inspect and see, not that, let's inspect. Nope, it doesn't really say anything. It must be just a React deal. For some reason, I thought I was going to see that in the inspector, but no big deal. So we're passing in this item hash. React isn't giving us a big warning, I don't think. It's giving us a handful of warnings. Above error occurred in the post component. Consider adding an error boundary. Interesting. Not sure what's going on with that. In any case, looks okay now. We're not getting any errors. Whatever. We'll look at it later if we see anything. But what we want to do is say post.content.body is what I believe we had in there. Post is not defined. Oh, it's props.post. Sorry. I must be getting tired or something because I'm making a bunch of obvious mistakes. Props.post.body. Let's refresh and see what happens here. Post. There we go. So now we have a bunch of like random MetaMask chat try. Anyway, so you can see a bunch of stuff coming back from Aleph now, and we won't be using this data structure. At some point, what we will do is talk through what this get posts is. And again, I've made other videos about it, but essentially there's a whole data network, and think of this like a database table. So we're saying, give me all of this stuff from the chat table where there's this ref of hull. I think we can change this. I think another one they have in their demo app is techies. So if we, so actually not many people use that one apparently, because this is Hi from TechMaker tutorial from way back in the day, months and months ago. So anyway, but this is kind of a data structure based around a chat, and it's not totally dissimilar. But anyway, we'll get more in depth in that later. But now we have some data coming in. So the next thing I want to do is just kind of start styling this and adding a bit more info, because actually whenever we pull the data back from Aleph, we're always going to get certain things. Like we're going to get the post body, which we can use here, but then we're also going to get the address of the person who pushed that out on the network, so on and so forth. I've also got to fix this. We're going to truncate this and style it a little bit. But yeah, I think I'm going to stop here in this video, and in the next video, we're really going to push this to a point where it's going to look a lot more like Twitter, and where we can actually sort of kind of see the pieces coming together. But this is getting a little bit long, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here. If you made it this far, as always, I super appreciate you watching, and I will talk to you in the next episode.